and that's defined as a bias based on age, one of the most accepted forms of prejudice. It shapes how we treat others, how we see ourselves, and how we age. Our speaker today will help us to understand how we can deal with this issue. Jenna Wickens works with CFS Counseling and Wellbeing as the MatureMinds coordinator. She believes that the future is open, provides advocacy, education, programs, volunteer opportunities, and community resource consultation, all that support our intrinsic value as we get older. Prior to this, Jenna engaged older adults through virtual programs, worked in family ministry, and directed a youth center. Her educational background is in community recreation from Brock University and Niagara College. And recently, Jenna has earned a designation as a certified professional consultant on aging. For over a decade, Jenna has been a storyteller for those whose voices often get lost in the shuffle. Through both poetry and prose, she's advocated for the encouragement and resilience found in others. In recent years, Jenna has become a local expert against ageism, recognizing that a cultural shift needs to occur if we are to see growing old as an opportunity, not a liability. Jenna is passionate about her faith, puns, and people. She wants all people to know that they are valued, and she firmly believes that the greatest superpower is hope. Gentlemen, I give you Jenna Wickens.
I am not Jenna. I'm just doing the screen share thing here.
Beautiful. What a great morning. Thank you so much for having me. I just tell you, it is a privilege to be standing in front of a group of men like this. What a joy. I mean, what a way to start my week off. This is fabulous. I was telling Duncan that in all the years that I've done this work, it is very rare to see a group of men like you coming together and being social like this, and I love it. Now, when I say group of men like you, I don't mean it's because you're overly handsome or that you're here and I can see on your faces that you're incredibly interested. What I mean is that it is so important because we know that being socially active is good for our health. And that social isolation and loneliness is actually as bad for you as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. Now, that doesn't mean that you go, I'm not going to go to PROBUS because I'd rather smoke. It means that doing this is good for you. So I'm so grateful to be here. I'm delighted to be part of this group, and just a little bit in the way of introduction, which helps if this is on. Don't you love it? Technology works until it doesn't. Oh.
Just tap the screen.
Isn't that a joy? Love that. Perfect. Thank you.
There.
So a little bit about me, with where I work with CFS Counseling and Wellbeing, and we are a not-for-profit organization in Simcoe County. And sometimes they let me come around here. I am actually a local girl. St. Catharines is my hometown. My parents graciously came to support me today, so I'm so thankful for that. But now I live in Barrie. And so being here today is just beautiful. With CFS, we exist to provide help, offer hope, and change lives. We do that through our community programs and our counseling. Community programs is what I do. I work with MatureMinds, but we like to say that the mature is optional. So if you're not feeling especially mature, that's okay. We do education and advocacy, community programs, volunteer opportunities, and other things like that. Now, a little bit about myself. As you can see, I am 5'11". I have blue eyes. I'm 40 years old. I'm single and I don't have any children. None of those things you would necessarily be able to tell right by looking at me, except for maybe my height and my blue eyes. I do, however, have nieces and a nephew, and they bring me so much joy. I love them to bits. My niece is 11 going on 18. Really, she's turning 12 soon. My youngest niece is turning 8. I have to get these numbers straight in my head. And my nephew just turned 5 years old. Now, if I went to my oldest niece and I said to her, Emma, you're just turning 10, right? She'd be like, Aunt Jenna, you know, I'm turning 12. That would be her response. The middle niece is a little bit more dramatic. So she might be, if I said, Bryn, this is gonna be your 6th birthday, right? Aunt Jenna, you know that I'm turning 8. And if my nephew I would ask, he'd just giggle. Here's the reality though. At some point along the way, we lose that. People start guessing your age, or you get them to guess your age. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just not going to do that. If you come up to me after and say, Jenna, guess my age, I will just say no. Because if I guess younger than what you are, then that is a microaggression of ageism. You'll be delighted. If I guess older than what you are, you might be in despair, and that's also a microaggression of ageism. And if I happen to guess your exact age, you could be delighted or in despair. And either way, it's a microaggression of ageism. I am doing this work because I want my nieces and my nephew to grow up in a world where they can be excited about every age. That there's no hiding an age, that it becomes part of their identity, like their eye color or their height. That's what it comes down to. Because what if by changing your mind about one simple word, it could have you living longer? What if changing your mind about one single word? Thank you so much. Amazing. But what if changing your mind about one single word could put you in better health? Give you better relationships? Better social interaction? If I said that, and I said it's all bottled in a pill form that you can take, then people would line up at the pharmacy and get the prescription that they need to take that pill. It's not even a pill, and it doesn't even cost you very much, but it has to do with this word. Old. Now, I'm sure that you can count, and old is not actually a 4-letter word. There's 3 letters there. It's not a curse word, but here's what I'd like you to do. When you hear this word, old, what are some words that come to mind? What are some words that society might say about this word? This is audience participation time. So now you're going to tell me, what does this word bring to mind?
Feeble.
Feeble, good word. Decrepit. Wow, that's a word. Okay, what else? Ancient. I heard mature. Poor memory. Wow, you are on it. Okay, here we go. Anything else? The end. Amazing, amazing. Okay. Largely, we can say, if we're going with society's view of this word, it's largely negative. The words that you said would represent that, right? Decrepit, feeble, the end, it's over, we're done, all those things. Now I'd like you to flip this, and when you think about this word and how it applies to you, when this word applies to you, whether that's today or in a near horizon. I personally am old in training. I wear a button to remind myself every day I'm getting older, and if I'm not aging, I'm dead. So every one of us is old in training. When you this word apply to you, old, what are some words that you hope other people would say about you? Wise. Proactive.
Good.
You look good. All right, love that. With the caveat. Gotcha. Love that. Love that. Anything else?
Not dead yet.
Not dead yet. You're still here.
Can you remember?
And not getting young. You know what? We live in a society that younger is like the ultimate prize. But none of us are doing that. We're all getting older. It's happening to all of us. I'm not saying that getting old doesn't have challenges. It does. Every stage of life has challenges. Every stage of life has liabilities, and getting older absolutely does. But I'd like you to do an exercise for me for a moment. It's not going to be a big exercise and you're not going to sweat, I promise. Take your finger and put it in front of your eyes. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. What can you see right now? Not a trick question. You see your finger, great. You're so smart, this group. I can tell right away. That's an intelligent group. Now take your finger and move it away from your eyes, out in front of you. What do you see now? You see your finger, but you see a lot of other things too, right? And so that's what we're talking about today. As we talk about ageism awareness, we're not saying that there aren't challenges. We're not saying that there's mornings that you wake up and you twist your back while you're sleeping and you don't know what happened. What we are saying though, is that we're moving our perspective, right? We're changing it. So we don't just see the liability, we see the opportunity, because there are opportunities. And for the first time in history, we have more older adults than we do people under 14 in Canada. It actually happened in 2016. And they're saying in the next 20 years, older adults, people who are 65 plus, will make up approximately 30% of our population. And so we need to be aware of ageism so we know how to address it so that we can live better lives, because the future is old and it's coming for all of us. Now, this is one of those tropes that you might see. I'm a grumpy old man. Remember Dana Carvey did this kind of thing for SNL where you go, I'm a grumpy old man. Back in my day, we didn't have windshields. We just flew through the front of the car and we liked it. Back in my day, we didn't have microphones. And he did this whole idea that being older means that you're always looking backwards. But we know that that's not true. We know that people are more technologically inclined today than they have been. John was showing me things on the computer, and quite frankly, John, you're speaking a language I don't understand. So good on that. But all of you, or most of you, are going to have cell phones. Most of you have smartphones because dumb phones are just too expensive. And so technology changes, and so do our attitudes. Here's another one that we might see. Betty White, aging is living, right? What we know is that ageism is getting old. And what we mean by that, tongue in cheek, is that this idea that youth is the ultimate is an idea that is no longer acceptable in our society. So here's your intro. Here's your warning. Likely you've all experienced this. The Ontario government just in the last week put out a study and showed that 1 in 3 people have experienced ageism in Ontario, and 1 in 2 have perpetuated it. So likely in this room and at your table, you've either experienced ageism or you've been ageist. Look, we're all a little ageist. We've grown up with these ideas. I like to say that I'm a recovering ageist because I had no idea how ageist I was until I started doing this work. But here's your warning. Once you see this here, once you hear it now, you don't unsee it. So if you want to walk out the room, I understand. But I think that there's still donuts here. So you might want to wait to snag one of those and then leave. Here it is, though. Here's how we know that at the base level of society that ageism reigns supreme. It's in simple things like birthday cards. Birthday cards, you know you're getting old when your back goes up more than you do. You begin every other sentence with nowadays. So you're turning 50. You're going down, bring it Francine. The getting off the couch contest is a highlight of any birthday celebration. Happy birthday. You know you're getting old when you and your teeth no longer sleep together. And happy birthday. I did not know what to get you for your birthday because at your age, it usually depends. Right? Now, don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying that we lose our sense of humor. But studies have shown that these kind of attitudes and messages actually have an effect on us, that we internalize them. We believe them to be true. And if these birthday cards were about anything else, they'd come off the shelf really quickly. Now, one year for my mom's birthday, I went to go get her a birthday card. And I walked into Dollarama, or if you go to Walmart, Dollar Tree, or any store, you're gonna find birthday cards like this. was trying to find a great birthday card for her that was funny and heartfelt and all those things that a daughter wants for her mom. And I was so taken aback by the amount of ageist messages in these birthday cards that my small act of rebellion in Dollarama was I went and I turned all of the cards over that were ageist. There was a lot of them. And then I was pretty pleased with myself and I called my dad and I was like, Dad, guess what I just did? I turned all of these cards over. And he goes, Jenna, they have cameras. Like, what are they gonna do? Arrest that woman. She turned over some cards. I didn't steal them. I just didn't want anyone else to see them. If these cards said anything else, right? Imagine giving this card to a friend who happened to utilize a wheelchair. Suddenly the messaging changes. Or what if this one said, happy birthday, I didn't know what to get you for your birthday because I know a race. It depends. It just changes the messaging to make it understand that these are actually not okay. And I've had friends who've had rest in peace to their youth parties. Like they have nothing else going ahead of them. Now they're 30, so life is over. And that's just not the case. I mean, you here today are showing off and showing up that life has so much more available for you. So what is it that we're talking about? What is this word ageism and why does it matter? Well, it refers to how we think, how we feel, and how we act towards ourselves or others based on chronological age. It really is based on our thoughts of chronological age. When I walked in here, you heard that I was a speaker, you saw me, you might have thought, she's just a baby. How's she gonna tell us about getting older? Fair enough. Your thoughts may have shifted when I said I was 40. But it's what we think about ourselves or others based on chronological age. So I'm just going to show you this video. Because the reminder is that we all have a story, but our beliefs about our chronological age can change the way that we interact with others and ourselves.
Hi. How do you tell when someone's past their prime? Do you go by age? By appearance? The truth is, there really is no sure way to tell.
Perfect.
Russ, do you have me muted? Hang on just a minute. Just a sec.
It's all good.
No, I do not. It just stopped
Okay.
the video.
Oops.
It's okay. Can't do the video. We can't do the video.
No, I'm sure we can.
Sean's got it.
Well, yeah, let's try it again.
Hi. How do you tell when someone's past their prime? Do you go by age? By appearance? The truth is, there really is no sure way to tell. And that's why we're introducing this. The human best before date. A tattoo for people over the age of 55 that lets you know their shelf life, like a yogurt or eggs. It's the date when they're no longer vibrant, useful members of society. It lets employers, friends, and relatives know when people like Mary here are really just a burden. Does that hurt?
A little bit.
You'll be fine. Now you might be asking, how do I get mine? Well, it's easy. Simply visit our online registry, answer a few personal questions, and within seconds, your very own best before date. Present your official verification in electronic or paper form at any of our sanctioned tattoo parlors. Just look for this sign and receive your complimentary tattoo. And parents, children are never too young to be issued a best before date. The sooner everyone knows when Jimmy's past his prime, the better. He's a brave little fella. So remember, don't be fooled by a youthful attitude or a lifetime of experience and achievements. Check the date, and be sure, you'll be glad you did.
All right, you see there, people don't have best before dates, right? You're not yogurt, you're not cheese. And even recently, I've learned that best before dates on your food are more of suggestions than anything else. And so we have to recognize that we have value. And that aging is a privilege that not everyone experiences. Those wrinkles on your face are storylines of laughter and worry, of cares that you've carried and cares that you've carried for other people. Now, it doesn't mean that getting older means you're going to be wiser, because you all know that person who is none the wiser and they're older than you, who continues to make choices and decisions that you look at and go, huh, that was interesting, which is our colloquial term for no thank you. We recognize that ageism is the only ism that actually reveals prejudice towards our future self. Any other prejudice that we either experience or perpetuate looks at someone else and says, you are different than I am, therefore you're bad. Different gender, different color, different anything, you are different than I am, therefore one of us has to be better. But ageism looks in the mirror and says, you are different than I was, and one of those has to be better. And so we have to change our mentality, because we all age. Aging equals living, anti-aging equals death. So for those of you who have wives or girlfriends or significant others or just female friends, or maybe you yourself, and they spend hundreds of dollars on anti-aging cream, tomorrow morning, when they go to slather that stuff all over their bodies, just give them a slight reminder that they're rubbing themselves down with death. Anti-aging equals death. So if we could have an aging cream that would remind us all that we have great experiences, that we have opportunities ahead of us, then that would be something that we could promote. You might recognize this person in the aging process, because we're all aging. Aging is not something annoying that happens to us after a certain age, like 60. It's not suddenly we're aging. We're all aging from the moment of life to the moment of death. And the ageism that we look at is internalized, interpersonal, and institutional. What this means is that we live in a society that builds a foundation of ageism. Then we also have the ways that we talk and interact with each other that promotes ageism, and then we take it in ourselves. It's why when you've invited friends to come out to PROBUS and they say, I'm too old for that, right? It's because they've internalized this idea that there's an age where they're no longer capable of being part of a social organization. And so why does it matter? Why sit here and listen to some 40-year-old woman come and tell you about ageism? Because ageism is bad for everyone's health. And anti-ageism is good for your life. And this is not just some sweet term I'm telling you. There have been studies that have shown this. Becca Levy out of Harvard did several of these studies. One of them, she put a group of people in front of computer screens and flashed in front of them words that were either positive about aging, negative about aging, or neutral. And then they proceeded to do a number of cognitive and physical tests. The people who had positive age words so quickly that they couldn't even decipher what they meant walked farther and remembered more. It's a reality that if you believe automatically that when you get older, your cognition and your cognitive functioning skills will be impaired, they will be. But if you believe that there's more opportunity than liability, then you're going to find yourself better off. She also did another study. Now on the back of my sweater, I have a number, you can't really see because of my hair, but it says, ask me about
7.5.
Right, so now's your opportunity to ask.
What's the 7.5?
Thanks so much. Thanks for participating, John. Appreciate that. Yeah, so Becca Levy did another study, and she, like, apart from all of the medications and medical health history, all that taken aside, demographics aside, the amount of money people had aside, people who had positive age beliefs, believing there was more opportunity than liability, lived on average 7.5 years longer. Now, I had some people come up to me after and go, Jenna, I don't want to live an extra 7.5 years. But I think in terms of my niece and my nephew, how much more influence could I have on their lives? How many more memories could we make in 7.5 years? What does that look like? And if we want it to be a brighter future for all of us, then it starts today with each one of us, that we change what we think about getting older, how we interact with ourselves and other people, so that those 7.5 years aren't just existing, aren't just surviving, but are thriving. I hope that you'll celebrate your birthday. I don't know that you do, but I hope that you will. Another study showed the U-shaped curve of happiness. In the beginning, we saw that picture of the grumpy old man, but studies have shown that we're actually the happiest the closer we get to the end of our lives. We have this idea that being youthful means that you're confident and you walk into a room knowing who you are. I've worked with youth. They are working on that, but that doesn't come naturally to them. I know a lot more older adults who walk into a room and know exactly who they are, and some older adults who don't care if anybody else cares who they are because they have confidence in who they are. There's also a reality that we are a death-adverse society. We don't like talking about death, thinking about death. We're not really good at grieving death. And as we get older, we become more aware that we are all mortal. Death has a 100% success rate. And it's coming for you too. Imagine I just ended there. Thanks for hearing me out. You're all gonna die. Go from here and prosper. But the closer we get to understanding that we are actually all going to die, it allows us to be more reflective on our lives and decide what we want our lives to stand for. Now, how many of you have ever played this game? The game of life. If you have any small people in your lives who may have played this game, I won't even ask you if you like this game because I don't like this game, but it's a lot of luck. You spin the wheel, you're a doctor who only makes $2,000 a year. And then you have 18 children that you have to fit into one van. And you go through this game, you spin the dice and you get there. Now the question is, in a game called life, when would you think this game is over? When you die, that would be logical. Life ends at death. But this game ends when you retire. Life is over at retirement. This is the messaging that we receive. And you either end up in a shack or a castle, but that's the end of the story. We know that that's not true. Of the people that I know, the retired people I know are the busiest people I know. There's so much going on. Volunteerism. Look, if we had to pay people, older adults, for their volunteerism across Canada, it would be billions of dollars, right? If we had to pay caregivers across Canada, again, billions of dollars. And ageism has a cost. In the States, in medical care, they figured out that the cost of ageism, as in how it brings people into the hospital, how people aren't cared for and aren't treated, actually costs the United States $62 billion a year. So in Canada, although we don't have the same kind of cost that it looks like for our medicine, we understand that there's effects. And it starts young, because at 4 years old, kids are starting to make determining ideas of what it means to get older. You're so old. What do you mean by that? The game of life was originally created in 1886 by Milton Bradley. He called it the checkered game of life. It was played like snakes and ladders. You'd move up the board and you could move farther if you got an education. You'd move down if you committed a crime. There were certain things that would stall you out on the board, but this game ended when you reached the happy old age of 50. Because our longevity has increased so much, right? When old age pension came into play in the 1930s, where the government and the state stepped in and Canada followed suit and said, we're going to take care of you. No more poorhouse for you. We're going to make sure that you have the last of your years are happy years and you don't have to worry. So when you turn 65, we're going to pay you some money. In the 1930s, the life expectancy was, take a guess. You would hope at least 65. Like, at least give us a year where we're being paid. But in the 1930s, in the United States of America, the average life expectancy was actually 57 years old. And so this is where institutional ageism comes into play. We're told there's going to be supports, but the supports are really political, women, anything. So we see media and we see ageism in media. This is where some of the messaging comes from. We're told that as we get older, we're either invisible, extreme, or awful, right? You walk into a store and you have money to burn, and someone younger comes in and the store clerk turns to them instead of you. There's this idea that it's invisible. Now, this is often more challenging for women because men get to be silver foxes and women get to be old hags. And there seems to be a discrepancy between those two. But I know, because of people that I've interacted with, I know it to be true that men also experience the idea of being invisible. You're sitting at a family table around Thanksgiving. People are talking all around you. And maybe you can't hear them because your hearing aid isn't working correctly, right? I wear contact lenses. If I didn't wear these, I wouldn't be able to drive here because I wouldn't make it here. So those different accessible devices that we use, they're not indicative of your value. There's something that you utilize to help you live the better life that you can. But when people ignore you, or talk around you, or speak to you like this with one syllable words, and talk to you very loudly as if your brain has departed when you put the hearing aids on, that's part of ageism. Sam Smith said the greatest power of mass media is the power to ignore. The worst part about this power is that you may not even know that you're doing it. And we saw this right over the pandemic when Lisa LaFlamme went gray and they decided that she was no longer the youthful face that they wanted representing them, even though she had won awards and even though her predecessors, men, had been in the position 20 years longer than she had. We also see the extremes. Right. This picture I love. In Barrie, at least, we have these like senior crossing signs all over the place, which when you think about it, a senior is 55 plus, and some people need help crossing the road, but some people don't. I like to think that they are doing the conga, that they're dancing across the road, because that's, I mean, really, we all know, right? You know people who are in their 40s and 50s who have less capabilities. And you know people who are 85 and 90 who are living life to the full. And so age is not a determinant of whether or not you're frail or sick or lifeless or dependent. And then the other extreme that we see is like this idea that you need to be superheroes, that if you're gonna be aging well, you need to be lifting weights, or you need to be skiing mountains or winning medals or surfing. And I don't know about you, but I am never gonna look like this guy. I just can't ride out here like that. Like, that's not gonna happen for me. It's this thing, this idea that you have to be somewhere in between, but most of us are going to land in the middle. It's not frail, it's not extreme heroism, it's just somewhere in the middle. But that's not what we see. It's only 5% of our population that needs extended care in assisted living. 5%, that's not what we see on media. After 85, that moves up to 25%. That's still not the majority. Most people will end up aging in place at home, which means that we need to know about the supports that are available. And part of the reason why people will age at place at home is because it's very expensive to go and live in a retirement complex. You actually might be better off going on a cruise, like all year round. Cheaper, way more fun, and you're out on the sea. What a joy, as long as you don't get sick. The other image that we get is this idea that getting older is awful, that it's a disease, it's a shame, it's a disaster, it's an evil, it's a nothing. This one is one of my favorites, because did you know, if you use this product, you will go from that to that. Amazing, incredible how these things work out. It's as if we've gotten this idea, like the songs, right? Forever young, I want to be forever young. Because we don't want to be devalued. Will you still need me? Will you still see me when I'm 64? Why did they decide that 64 was the age that you're no longer lovable? I don't know. They're great tunes, but the messages tell us something other, something awful. And it's all over the place, this idea of a silver tsunami. We're coming in and taking over the resources. Watch out, kids. Those checkers playing older adults are gonna take away your fun time on the beach. That's just not true. If anything, we actually need to have more older people in the workforce because people are living longer, so they need to work more. Because we have these technologies that we need to have mentorship. Because if you're living longer and you retire at 65 and you live until 95, because now in Canada, our life expectancy is 87 as an average. That means that you're going to have 20 to 30 years that you need to be able to financially support yourself. But when you try and get jobs, there's people who are like, I've got like 5 pages of resumes or 5 pages in their resume. And they try and cut things out or they remove the date. And then they go to the interview and someone looks at them and goes, oh, you are overqualified for this. I don't understand how that's even gonna work. You're either qualified or you're not. If you're overqualified, then you are choosing to do something that you know you can do and get paid less than what you're worth. Medicine and ageism, your doctor can only do so much, the rest is up to you. Stop getting older. Ashton Applewhite wrote a book and she said, one day she woke up and her knee was really sore. And her first thought was, oh, I'm getting so old, my knee hurts. And then she realized that her other knee was just as old, so it likely wasn't the age piece. You might have aches and pains and that's fine. But when you go to the doctor and you say, I'm hurting in this area, and they respond with, what do you expect for your age? They're not actually treating the symptoms. And you might respond with, hey, if I was a different age, would you give me a different treatment? Right now, we're in such a shortage of doctors, and don't get me wrong, I love doctors. I'm related to 2 of them, so I'm like actually obligated to love doctors. But we have a shortage of doctors. It's hard to find a good family doctor, and you don't want to lose your doctor. So I'm not saying be rude to your doctor, but the reality is that people over 65 are on an average of 11 different medications, and a lot of those are treating the symptoms and side effects of another medication. And some of those things will be taken care of, but you need to be able to do some of the research yourself. It's also the reality that after a certain age, I believe it's 74, it might be younger than that now. If you want a prostate exam, you have to ask for it. Like if life expectancy is to 87, that's a lot of years in between those times. It's the same for women with breast exams and breast cancer. After a certain age, you have to ask for it. It's no longer automatically given. And if a man had cancer and a certain treatment would give him 5 more years of life, and he was over 70, or another man had cancer and he was 30 and the same treatment would give him 5 more years of life, the treatment is always offered to the 30-year-old. The 70-year-old has to ask for it. But knowing these things means that you can ask. There's other things that we know for sure. There's conditions that people say it's just part of your age, but fatigue or pain or depression or cognitive impairment or anxiety. If you have cognitive impairment, you may be in the beginning stages of dementia or Alzheimer's. You might also have an infection, or you're grieving, or you're tired. And those things don't necessarily have to do with your age, but the circumstances that you find yourself in. And depression isn't a natural part of aging. And so if you find yourself in a state where you're feeling sad all the time and you don't know why, and you go to your doctor and your doctor says, what do you expect for your age? Well, you can expect, the studies have shown that you're actually at the happiest part of your life. That's what we saw at the beginning. U-shaped curve of happiness. So if you're not there, there's something else going on. Ashton Applewhite said a growing body of evidence shows that attitudes towards aging have an actual physical, measurable effect on how we age. Now, money, we talked about this a bit. There's this idea of old money, this idea that either your money doesn't matter or it matters too much, that you're holding on to money and then younger people can't get it. That's just not true. You've worked hard for your money. You deserve to spend it in the way that brings you joy. Iris Apple said, dress to please yourself, listen to your inner muse. Take a chance, wear something that says, here I am today. Goldie Hawn said, it's wonderful to know you're aging because that means you're still on the planet. And Allure magazine did an end of anti-aging campaign. They're like, how can we have these incredible actors and actresses on the front of our cover and then say, but they'd be better if they were younger? And Vogue, we have one of the oldest tattoo artists at 104. She's working in the Philippines. Now, how do you respond to these things? Due to time, we're going to skip this video just because I'm cognizant. I don't want to keep you longer than what you're here for. I know that's kind of the jam. But some of the language that we talked about already, the elderly and seniors. Inherently, there's nothing wrong with these terms, but it tends to put a group of people, all from different backgrounds and experiences, in one lump group. If we had a group of 17-year-olds in this room, chances are they'd be more similar than this room is because of where you've come from, the experience you've had, the years that you've lived. So throughout my presentation, I've referred to older people as older adults because older and younger is relative. It's relational. Depending on the room that you're in, you may be older or younger than someone else. They did a study that showed on a spectrum of words that had us feeling dependent and frail and useless, to words that had us feeling independent, contributors to society, valuable members of the world that we live in. Seniors landed over here. Older adults lands over here. So we choose to use the words older adults, not because there's anything wrong with seniors, but even in the language we use, we want people to know and hearing that they are valued, that they are people who have worth. Bed blocker is a word that can be used in hospitals where people get put on beds, and then usually older people, they're a bed blocker, they're taking up space from someone else. A senior moment. Now, I'm sure that most of you have said this at some point. I'm having a senior moment. But when you're in high school, you didn't have a junior moment. And the interesting thing about this term is that it was just invented 30 years ago by a reporter reporting on a retired doctor who was on vacation and couldn't remember his ongoing tennis score. She said of him, he was having a senior moment. And it caught on. And we're talking about someone who is highly educated, highly active, and very social. And now we use it as every time we go into the kitchen and forget whether we're going there to get a snack or put a snack back. And we say, I'm having a senior moment. Look, if you don't remember if you had a snack or not, get another snack. You have that pollution. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. No way, ain't happening. I don't think so. Not true of dogs, not true of people. Set in their ways, some of y'all are. Some of us are. Some of us are stubborn beyond belief. Some of us are set in our ways. Not everyone is. Set in their ways is personality. I'm too young or too old for that. My knee hurts, I'm getting old. What do you expect for your age? This one is like benevolent ageism. So-and-so is 91 years young. No, they're not. They've earned those years. It also can look like when you go into a store and you're shopping and doing things and someone comes up to you and goes, "Hi, dear, can I help you with that?" There was a gentleman I met, he's like this big 6'2" guy who was carrying out 2x4s in a hardware store on his shoulder. And this little thing came up to him and goes, "Hi, dear. Are you okay?" And he told me that he really wanted to get a t-shirt that had an expletive on it that said, "Don't call me dear." I wouldn't say go that far. I think we can respond in kindness, but it's recognizing when people say these things that they might be trying to be kind, but it's not actually. 60 is the new 30. It is not, because we haven't lived this long before, so 60 is the new 60. And she looks great for her age. This is another one that we think is nice. You look so good for your age. Aren't you active for your age? You're so social for your age. You're handsome for your age, which basically means if you were another age, you would look much better. If you were a different age, I could expect you to be more social and more active, but at your age, woo, you're doing good. And so it's not a kindness. There was a woman I met who would go hiking in scenic caves in Collingwood. It's like $40 a trip to go there. That is too rich for my blood, but she loved it. She would go in, I think she was in her 80s. She was great. She would come in with her walking sticks and she'd do the loop. And she said lately, every time she goes, there's always a group of people who assume that she needs help. And she smiles and is polite with them. And then she does the loop faster than they do. Because she knows her own abilities and strengths. I'm not saying when someone offers you a seat that you shake your fist at them. I'm just saying that you can respond to their kindness, but it's also okay to respond to things like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? I can't believe at your age you're, oh, what do you mean by that? Doc, I've got these things going on in my life. Oh, well, what do you expect for your age? What do you mean by that? And you'll see people stumble over the words. What should my age look like is a good one. And then this next one is my favorite. When someone says to you, you look good for your age, you can respond with, you look good for your age too. And see how that goes down. Lastly, we mentioned briefly elder speak. This is where you speak slowly, loudly, one syllable words. When the Queen was alive, if you went in for tea with her, if you were invited to such an extravagance, and you walked in and saw her gray hair, and said, "Queen, so good to see you. Would you like some tea? Careful, it's hot. Let's blow on it together." They would think you lost your mind. Right? Those guards would be coming after you so fast. The Queen worked up until the day before she died. She's sending letters of condolence to people in Saskatchewan who had experienced violence at the hands of someone else. We recognize her value because of her position. We recognize the value of actors because of their position. But everyday people, we have value because we're people. So in closing, C.S. Lewis said that you are never too old to set another goal, and a dream, a new dream. With Mature Minds, the reason why we say that the future is old is because we believe that it starts today with us, with shifting our perspective to understanding that getting older is full of opportunities, not just liabilities. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Any questions? Got a question, stick your hand up, I'll get to you really, Mike.
Yeah, question,
Well,
or if you want to share your experiences of
Cancel
ageism.
the screen share.
Oh, perfect.
Look at that. Okay, we still have an audience of sorts. Any questions? What?
I'll tell a short story. I was at our daughter's flights this weekend, like any cottage and project, and we're building a dock. So I've got my sleeve rolled up, I've been there, and I have 3 granddaughters in their 20s who are doing nothing. And one of the granddaughters says, "Grandpa, you're too old to be doing that." But I know what I'm doing.
Amazing. But and meanwhile, they're not helping.
Hang on, okay, so Len will get you in a second, got one here. You go ahead.
That reminds me of one, the Bertus. The Bertus said, "I might be old, but I'm not stupid."
Exactly. Yeah, old is not equivalent to stupid, that's for sure.
Question for you, at what age do you start bragging about how old you are?
I think every age, it starts today.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Oh, hang on. Let him get there.
You kind of remind me of a story of I used to watch with a friend of mine who was totally blind. me at the dog, we go out from the streets to St. Catherine's. And I start talking to him, and we talk a little louder, and I talk louder again, I talk a little louder. He looked at me, he said, Len, he said, I'm only blind.
I love that.
Rudy, you have a question?
I have met people, so here's the thing. We take in ageism, we internalize it, and sometimes we spit it out without knowing it. And I've been at info fairs where I'm talking about this stuff. I'm inviting people to join our programs to say what you have value. And there was one where this woman came up with her daughter. And her daughter was talking to her like this, Mom, where do you want to go next? So I take this in, reflect, I parrot it back, and I go, hi, welcome here. What can I help you with? And the mom's like, I'm just looking for opportunities to volunteer, just trying to see what's around, what's out there. Oh, so it happens to all of us, even though I've been doing this for a while, that we can parrot back what we've heard. And like your friend said, we get in this mode where we're stuck, where we think, oh, you can't see me, so I have to speak louder. Or, oh, you must need me to do this. And I have been doing this long enough to know that older adults are confident enough to tell me if I'm talking too fast or too loudly. I rarely get too quietly.
I had heart valve surgery last Wednesday, and in an interview with the surgeon, after I answered his questions about my lifestyle, he says, he's a candidate. We don't usually do seniors over 89.
Wow, that's so great. I'm so glad that they didn't have your age as the reason for you not to get the help you needed. Maybe you'll be the next oldest person in Canada. That'd be great, right? All right, thank you again for your time. If nothing else, I hope that you leave here knowing that you are valuable, that you are worthwhile, and that your stories are worth people's time. Because you're old, and that's great.
Thank you, Jenna. You're right.
Move over close enough so that you can see yourself.
All right.
There you go.
So, there's no question about knowing the topic that you're talking about. There's no question about energy and enthusiasm, loudness, which is appreciated, I'm sure, but it's you, for that. I wanted to, thank you with the gift certificate. Speaking of ageism, we have a secret item here that, will help with ageism. It's a $30 gift certificate from the LCBO, and if you take it, it may promote younger feeling for a little while. We hope that you think of us in your ageism process.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.